So Signgate took place on March 21st, 2026, and involved two campaign workers of Alex Schaffer, Cheryl Stone, and somebody named Ginger, putting up campaign signs and then having an encounter with Linda Worley, supposedly yelling at them, and Paul Worley physically stealing signs out of their vehicle. And so I got body cam footage and radio traffic communications relating to the events, and I'm going to play a couple of radio communications first. Then I'm going to play the entirety of the body cam that I received. So the body cam is from a sheriff's deputy, last name Smalley. And then I think you briefly hear maybe Randy Walters on the radio at some point in time. And you're going to see Peebles Police Chief Copley as part of this as well. And it's quite amusing as you listen to the rigors of Signgate. So let's start with the two radio, it's actually three little quick radio communications. They were in quick succession, but I put beeps in between them just to isolate each part.
Okay. If they need them back, they can call the police department. I'll be more than happy to give them back. I've got, probably 8 signs, half a dozen or so in my hand.
So that was Copley. So not only does this confirm that somebody stole the signs, but then they brought them back to Copley and he has them in his possession. It turned out to be 6 signs. He says maybe 8 signs and says 6 signs. So this is not the crime of the century. It's pretty obvious. Somebody took the signs and then returned them to Chief Copley.
This female's advising, regardless whether they get the signs back or not, they're still pressing charges. Break.
Good.
Okay, so we have that the victims, the 2 women who had the signs taken out of their vehicle, that they are going to press charges for the theft of the signs out of their vehicle. So the actual event has nothing to do with a sign being put in a yard, being removed from a yard. That ties into it, but the actual crime was Paul Worley stealing signs out of a vehicle.
They're stating that the gentleman actually took the rest of their signs out of their vehicle as he was walking by.
Okay, so that was Sheriff Deputy Smalley confirming what happened. Paul Worley stole signs out of a vehicle. It's okay to get upset. It's okay to whatever. It's not okay to steal. Okay. It's also not okay to lie, but Paul Worley doesn't seem to adopt that either when it comes to economic development. So now let's go on to the actual body cam of the event. And this was from Deputy Smalley's body cam. I'm going to play this in its entirety. I'm not editing anything out of this.
$14 to $761. I was on Elliott. There's nobody waiting there for me.
Okay. If they need them back, they can call the police department. I'll be more than happy to give them back. I've got, probably 8 signs, half a dozen or so in my hand.
Have you met with the complainant, Jeff 14?
So, by the way, that was the same you heard from the radio communication audio files of Copley. You're hearing it through her body cam saying he has 6 to 8 signs in his possession that were returned to him after they were stolen.
A negative. I'm here right now making a second pass through, but nobody's here.
Okay, stand by one. I'm on the phone with complaint.
I'm in front of 13 Elliott.
I think think Copley must have been on the phone with Alex Schaffer, who would
They're
not.
supposed to be at the car wash waiting on you.
Change location. The area / no one in the area.
Alex Schaffer would not be the actual complainant because
Okay, somebody's walking out now.
the women were the ones who had the sign stolen from them, not Alex Schaffer.
Should be a Ginger and Cheryl.
So that's Cheryl Stone and somebody named Ginger, who were the ones putting up signs.
14 to 761. Can you respond over here?
Affirmative, I'll be here in a moment.
Hello.
Hello,
So who's Ginger?
Ginger.
Okay, so you were on the phone with Sergeant Walters?
No, that was Alex Schaffer.
Okay.
He's running for commissioner,
Okay.
and we called and told him about the problem, and then he knew Walters and a lot of the sheriffs over there, and he said, I'll call him back, and he got a hold of somebody over there, and then he called back and said, wait right where you are, and they're sending a deputy.
Okay. So what's the problem? What happened?
We were out putting up signs.
Campaign signs.
Okay.
Alex put it across from Worley. And him and his mother, I guess it was him, I don't really know the man. She started cussing us, but while I was bent over tapping them in and she was standing there, they stole our signs out. I had
Right
them
out of the
packed
vehicle.
up. They stole our signs out of the vehicle. She saw them taken.
Yeah.
But we pulled away because we didn't want any confrontation.
So you got an eyewitness that saw the signs getting stolen out of their vehicle. Now we're going to come back to where they were putting the signs, which I'm not entirely clear on, but it seems they were putting them in a place they shouldn't have put them. But let's keep going.
Okay. So it sounds like the chief of Peebles actually has your signs. I guess he was talking to Mr. Worley as the information was coming into me. So,
So I you know what? No disrespect, sweetie, but that's theft. He took those out of our vehicle. I don't care what he was going to do with them.
okay, well, do you want to let me finish, ma'am?
Sure.
Okay. So if you want to pursue charges, then it's going to be through the chief of police that will file them because it's in Peebles.
Right.
All I was telling you was that he has your signs and he's on his way here now.
Okay.
So if you want to still file charges, then yes, absolutely, you can do that,
Okay.
especially if he took them out of the back of the vehicle.
Okay.
But it's going to be in Where was you when he took the signs?
Like in front of his house.
Where I don't know where Paul.
It's right inside the corporation room, right down there on the left.
On this side of the
Okay,
horn.
so it is in the court.
Yeah.
Okay. So once the chief of police gets here, I mean, you guys can talk to him. He'll be the one handling it, okay,
Okay.
since it's in the court. And he should be here anytime. I'll stand by here with you.
Oh, great. I'm going to go get a cigarette. Hold this, Ken.
Cheryl should quit smoking.
14 to 761. This female's advising, regardless whether they get the signs back or not, they're still pressing charges. Break.
So they know they want charges pressed. By the way, I think charges should be pressed.
They're stating that the gentleman actually took the rest of their signs out of their vehicle as he was walking by.
People sucking at the government tit like Paul Worley should be held to a high
I'll be
standard.
over in just a second. I'm heading that way.
So that's Copley on his
I'll
way.
stand by.
we go.
He's calling Alex, I think, in Franklin County.
Show me how 14.
It's a nice vehicle.
61 clear, 16, 23.
I think there could be a TV show about Adams County.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. What can I help you with?
Well, we've been putting out campaign signs.
Okay.
We did Manchester yesterday. We did West Union.
Okay.
Today was O'Peebles because we got a greet and meet Saturday over at the fire station.
Okay.
So we went out Locust Grove, went towards Sinking Springs, come back this way, put them up Cemetery Road, what have you. Stopped right there to put one up in the view of coming from Peebles to Locust Grove. Okay?
Okay.
So just when we stopped, we pulled off on this side of the road. We didn't have a clue who lived there. I'm from West Virginia, she's from Manchester.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we got out.
Alex Schaffer, Commissioner for Adams County.
And so we get out, raise the hatch, go across the street, that side of the street to put one so that would be visible coming from Peebles.
Okay.
She was been over trying to get it in the rocks, and his mom come out cussing and hollering. And as I turned around to see who it was, I saw him take the signs out of the vehicle.
1039.
Which
Yeah.
vehicle?
That one. The hatch was up. We were on the other side of the road, both of us.
Okay.
It is.
She had
Sure,
Mother and
I'm hanging up in the air in front of the phone. And I heard this lady, I go, and so as I turned around to see who it was,
Hey, are you close to 419
Yeah.
Lemon Lane?
I didn't know who it was.
17 West.
So what I did, I pulled the phone out of the well, we got in and we proceeded to here. Because we didn't know how Alex was going to handle this. We didn't want to get in confrontation with him because of Alex.
Okay. Who's Alex?
He's Alex Schaffer, and he's running for Adams County on May 5th.
Okay.
So I just want to call bullshit. I mean, you can't hear a little bit because of the vacuum running in the background, but Copley says, who's Alex? Well, Copley supposedly has the 6 to 8 Alex signs at this point in time. So he seems to be like, if he apparently has some cognitive issues or he's playing dumb. If he has cognitive issues, he should not be a cop, okay? If he's playing dumb, he shouldn't be a cop. He has the signs that say Alex on them. So when she says Alex Schaffer and he's like, who's Alex? It makes no sense.
That's who she's talking to.
How many signs was it that was taken out of the vehicle?
7. 6, 7, something like that.
Okay, so we already heard that he has 6 to 8. She says 6 to 7. So talk about an open and shut case.
We had discounted them because we had to go around one Marble Furnace and come back through. We had discounted them.
Okay.
It was 6 or 7. Because I got one in there that I pulled up from the car.
Okay.
Alex says he was charged with theft. He's a complainant.
Okay.
So she said Alex said he wants charges pressed. He's the complainant. He's not the complainant, okay? I guess maybe there could be an extension that they were his property, but the actual legitimate complainant would be these women who had legal possession of the signs and had them stolen out of the back of a vehicle.
Well, I mean, here's the deal on that. If they were, whose vehicle is that registered to? Her. Okay, so Alex wouldn't be the one to really necessarily press charges. It'd be up to you to press charges because if it was stolen out of your vehicle. Now, here's what I will say. Were you trespassing onto their property?
No.
Okay, now here's going to come the complete Copley bullshit parade, and this guy should get a fast pass to getting the opportunity to not have to sacrifice like he does as somebody sucking at the taxpayer tit and go and work in the private sector. Go make all the money you can in the private sector. You know, all these, because he's going to go into all this bullshit about trespassing, about people being upset about signs. That has nothing to do with whether a crime was committed of the signs being taken out of somebody's vehicle. Zero to do with that. And also, he should know, maybe he's not competent, maybe he's not trained, but what trespassing means. So just so everybody knows this. So You can walk, like when I walk up to somebody's door and ring the doorbell, pull in their driveway and go knock on the door. How about politicians going door to door, knocking on your door? None of that is trespassing. None of it is trespassing. I can walk onto your property, ring your doorbell, whatever, okay? And talk to you, try to talk to you, what have you. I can do that. That is not trespassing. What trespassing is when you have received prior notice not to be on the property, and then you come on the property after having had notice. These women obviously had no notice to not be on the property, so this Copley guy is a complete ass clown for bringing this up, or he's completely incompetent and has the cognitive issues. Because unless they had prior notice, how would you get prior notice? One would be that the person tells you are trespassed to get off their property, okay? A lot of times when people do that, they go to law enforcement, so it gets recorded by law enforcement that somebody's been trespassed. The other thing is to put up no trespassing signs, which, by the way, to my understanding, now are in front of Linda Worley's house. They put up no trespassing signs there. But at this point in time, this guy even bringing up trespassing is completely asinine, and he's got to go. He's got to go. He probably won't. People get protected. We like to protect incompetent people sucking at the tit who are making incredible sacrifices to not be earning so much more money that they could in the private sector, like I'm sure Mr. Copley could. Let's keep rolling.
No, we were alongside the road.
Okay. Well, they're claiming that you were trespassing on the property.
We went across the road. We weren't even on his car. I mean, my car was parked like this.
That's actually his mother's property.
By the way, for them to claim that they were trespassing would mean that they're asserting that they gave them prior notice to when they came on their property this time. If they did, they gave them prior notice to not be on the property. That's what would be that you trespassed them, and then they trespassed after they had been trespassed, which means notified to stay off the property.
So you wrong.
You weren't on her property, honey.
Well, I'm just telling you what they're telling me.
Well,
right?
it's not so. Okay, let's say this is 41, okay?
Okay.
Right here. We weren't on no green grass. We were like off the barrier of 41. We were not on their property.
And once again, I'm trying to make sense of all this and kind of put this into realistic terms. Okay, so... And once again, I'm not taking sides. That's not my job. Right?
I understand.
But what I will say is, so if, say, for example, that was your resident.
He is absolutely taking sides, and the lack of just pressing charges, like it would happen the other way, if is him taking sides. The guy should not be in public service. I know he's related to somebody, so that's why he's really there, but he should not be in public service.
Okay, and somebody come up and put a sign exactly where you did. Now, whether you were in support of that political candidate or not.
Okay, now he's going to go into all this stuff about where they put a sign. I'm going to come back and talk about where they put a sign. So they put a sign, I guess, in front of Linda Worley's house or something, claiming it was in the public right-of-way. We're going to come back to that because that is wrong. Okay, what they did was wrong. But stealing the signs out of the vehicle has nothing to do with them putting a sign in somebody's yard. If Paul Worley would have come out and taken the sign and walked off with the sign that was in the yard, that would be what it is, okay? That would be an entirely different situation. But his reaction, and from what I understand from these women, is to come steal signs out of a vehicle on the other side of the street to where they put a sign while they were actively there. That's a crime, okay? That is a crime. But this cop is apparently... has the mission to have one-sided law enforcement to protect insiders in the Peebles area.
Do you think the people driving by that know that you reside there, that are friends of yours who may not support that candidate, may assume that now you do support said candidate, and now it causes undue drama or undue hatred or whatever the case may be against you or whoever resides there? You see what I'm saying? So to them, to the general public, it's like, okay, so this person is supporting that person. Okay, well, that's, and I'm not, once again, I'm not going to get into the politics or anything like that. That's not my job. But what I will say is that's like somebody, I can tell you right now, I'm a pro-Trump supporter, right? I just call a spade a spade. But if somebody put a Bernie Sanders or Sleepy Joe Biden sign in my front yard, or whether that was in the, right of way, I'm going to take it down. And the reason I say that.
But remember, it's not about somebody taking the sign down. It's about going to their vehicle and stealing the signs out of the back. So this non-cop who wears a thing that says police, dresses up nice like a police man, can he make us a list of when it's okay to steal shit? So if somebody puts a sign in your yard that you don't want in your yard, then it's okay to go steal their shit? I just want to understand his interpretation, because apparently we have the Copley Revised Code in Peebles. We don't have the Ohio Revised Code. We don't have actual Peebles ordinances. We have some different law there where there's certain situations where you can steal from people if they've done something that upsets you.
You know what I mean? So,
but you don't have to be cussed out, and they didn't have to steal the signs. I know you can't take sides, but still.
I can't.
He clearly is taking sides. He's parroting the Worley narrative through this whole thing. That is taking sides versus focusing just simplistically on the issue at hand, the stealing of the signs out of the truck or out of the SUV. We're going to come back and talk about the behavior of these women in placing the signs and so forth.
So
I don't want you to take sides.
I'm absolutely not. I've actually got the signs in the back of the truck. He had no.
So he got the signs from Paul Worley, who stole the signs. Okay, so it's an open and shut case, baby. Open and shut, but not in Peebles where you have corrupt law enforcement. And by the way, this is the definition of corrupt, Mr. Copley. This is you corrupt, that you don't just simply handle it according to the law, let it get worked out in the court system.
No problem, like here's the signs, I don't, you know what I mean? Once again, though, I'm not taking sides, just looking at it from their perspective, you know what I mean? That'd be like somebody coming and putting a sleepy Joe Biden in your...
So when he says look at it from their perspective, so for example, if somebody were spouting off to me and I just deck them, okay, that's assault. We have this in Batavia Village happen in Claremont County right now. Even if the person is basically saying shit you don't like, it's not an excuse to hit them. But he says look at it from their perspective. So again, some sort of different law in Peebles, some different, maybe a communist country, maybe not part of America. That's what gets me, is how many of our elected officials and our public officials, public servants like this man, don't seem to understand American values or principles. They appear to be communist in the way they do things, where the law should be for the favored versus the disfavored.
How would that make you feel? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I understand.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So,
no, I understand.
But they could
that
have been
part.
nice about it. We didn't know who they were.
The other thing too is this gentleman actually works for the current commissioners.
Oh, he's not taking sides, but we have different law enforcement in Peebles with Clown Cop Copley. If you work for the commissioners, different law. But he doesn't take sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who? Worley?
Yes.
Yeah, I know he's put in there. Never mind. I can have my signs.
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything.
Right,
I don't want to deal with this mess again. I like peace and quiet.
Oh, I do too.
It's been peace and quiet for 2 days till this.
I do too. I mean, and that's the thing. I don't, I didn't even know he worked for the current commissioners. I had no idea. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm kind of coming to this. Matter of fact, I was at my grandmother's eating lunch when he come over into the yard and was talking to me, and I was like, what and who and what and when and what? I'm just trying to grab some stuffed cabbage for lunch. That's about it.
Thus the name Cabbage Roll Copley. We're waiting for an Afro Man song. Cabbage Roll.
I don't know what's going on right now.
Let's go to your grandma's.
So, once again, it's whatever you guys want to do. I mean, you want me to be?
No, I just want the signs. I don't want to deal with them. I've been cussed out enough today. I mean, they could have just said we don't want those signs on our property.
Could you please take them?
Now, these ladies maintain that Linda Worley cussed them out. I don't know that they get people saying Linda Worley would never do that, but probably people saying the Worleys would never steal shit. But they claim that she was cussed out. I'm glad to interview any of the Worleys on this. I tried to approach the Worley house, and they told me to leave, and I left because I had been at that point, I believe, trespassed, meaning they've asked me not to be on the property, and I haven't committed a crime by going onto the property to try to interview them. I would be committing a crime if I went back on the property, and I bet you if I did, Mr. Copley would have no trouble pressing charges against me almost instantly.
Down. I didn't know she lived there.
Right.
I just wanted to view.
We was off the road so much, and the state owned so far off the road, so.
Yeah, I mean, you just gotta. I mean, it's Adams County, right? I was born and raised over here. You know what I mean? Like I said, that'd be even if I was in your shoes and I said, technically, ma'am, we own. The state of Ohio owns 10 feet into your property, but I'm gonna throw this Sleepy Joe Biden sign in the front yard here. What are you gonna do the minute I leave?
Okay, so let's be clear. You don't have a right to put signs in the public right of way, period. Okay, so the state could remove them. Other people could, I think, remove them. You don't have a legal right to do that. However, when it's election time, like ODOT and other places, consider those free speech zones, and they will let signs be in some of those right-of-way places without removing them. That's point one. But for example, if you put one in front of a school or a police station, they're going to take them down almost immediately, right? Because you don't have a legal right to put the signs in those places. There are areas where the government, and ODOT would be the best example, will not take them down. And you see that, like if you come into Claremont County, you'll see them on fences that are, state fences along roadways. People will put them up on those, and they won't touch them during an election, a reasonable time of the election period. They could. The state could come take them down, okay, off of there. I think if, frankly, and I might have misspoke, if a private individual came and took them down, I think that would be a problem. But they could. The state could take them down. So these women, I don't buy that they had no clue that these were the Worley's houses. I've been there. It's just kind of along the road. It would be like, why would I stop here? The places people try to put campaign signs in the public right of way are typically at intersections or at like exit entrance ramps, stuff like that. Not just randomly down on a street, and just happens to be in front of Linda Worley or Paul Worley's houses. So I don't buy that story. And I also don't buy this logic. And if that's what Alex is telling them, you can just throw signs up wherever because we own 10 feet. The state owns 10 feet into people's yards. That's bullshit. Nobody would do that. I would think if anybody did that, it would be wrong. The places where the state basically looks the other way during an election cycle are things like I said, like in Claremont County, you'd have a lot more of these where there's clear kind of public right-of-way areas where there's, say, like ramps going on to 275 and stuff like this, and you'll see those. Basically the same deal, too. If you come in Claremont County and you put them in along like the expressway itself, like 275, they're going to take them down almost immediately. The state does not tolerate any political signs being on expressways, in the medians or anything on expressways. So the notion that these women, were clueless about who lived there, or this illogic of somehow you're allowed to put signs in front of people's houses because we own 10 feet into them, that's wrong. Both those things are wrong, okay? By the way, them doing that doesn't justify Paul Worley stealing signs out of their vehicle, okay? And I don't think what they did was any sort of a crime. I just think it's ill-advised, and the people or the state should take those signs down when people do that.
I would hope that they're better people than to go all over Peebles and take our signs down.
Well, no, I don't foresee them going and doing that. I mean, it just so happened that you picked somebody that... You picked the wrong place. I mean, randomly, right? You didn't necessarily know, right? But you picked the wrong place that, oh my God, you know what I mean? And just...
Putting political signs in front of somebody's house, whatever your logic is, without their consent is always the wrong thing to do.
I don't foresee somebody...
You said you was raised here.
Yes.
And I went to school, graduated in the 70s.
Yes.
And I believe Jerry was your grandpa.
Jerry was my grandfather. Yes, he was.
He busted my tail.
Well, there's quite a few people that say that. There's quite a few people. Let me grab these for you.
Okay. He was good, though. I like.
But now he's going to get the signs for him.
But I understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Is that your husband?
Yes. Hello. We're in Peoples.
By the way, I'm glad Adams County Sheriff had body cam running on this whole thing.
They were taking off. No,
Here come the signs. Remember, he didn't know who Alex was.
It's like 6.
But he has the signs. He got them from Paul Worley. Open and shut case. Open and shut.
No, this is my husband.
Oh, okay.
He's just wonderful.
So, I mean, do you want me to talk to this Alex guy, or?
You can.
Right. I mean, he knows what went on, but here, let me put these in the car.
Okay.
Nothing against people,
You
but
got
I've had
stuff
enough
you gotta
today.
get done.
We're about out here. I think that the sheriff's deputy's going to leave here in a second.
They were just schooling me on what was theft.
Well, maybe people in Adams County think the sheriff's deputies need schooling on the law after the whole Afro-Man debacle.
Hey,
No, I'm good.
the officer is here from Peebles.
Hey, do me a favor. Just make sure your tag's on this morning.
By the way, the sheriff's office has authority in the whole county, even in these villages. So they could press charges, they could act on things. They have authority across the whole county.
I got those good.
I'm sure I'm over there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. You'll never let me live that one down.
I won't, actually. I will not. I got another new guy.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, this one's greener than grass that grows. I'll tell you right now, ain't even tried on this guy's certificate.
Okay, so that is it. That is the complete body cam of this whole incident. So it's just crazy. What it exposes is the character and ethics of Paul Worley. However, I do think that the women are likely not being fully forthcoming, that they were totally ignorant of where they were putting these signs, and clearly they were misguided as to the notion of just throwing up signs anywhere under some argument that we own, that the state owns 10 feet into people's yards along roads like this. That is just not legitimate. The state allows signs typically, and the counties typically allow signs in certain public right-of-way areas during election times as a support for the First Amendment. When you go do stuff like this, that you're jeopardizing that, because they don't have to. The government could take those signs down, no problem, and out of those public right-of-way areas. So don't do what these women did. Don't put them in front of houses under some crazy argument. By the same token, you wouldn't put them in front of government buildings like schools, et cetera. That's not, you can't have that same logic there. And when you do this kind of stuff, you're only encouraging the government to basically at some point say, okay, we're just not going to allow any of these signs to be in public right-of-way areas at all. And that would be an impairment of the First Amendment. I actually think it works good the way it is, but you got to have properly trained campaign people. I know Alex is new to running for office, so he might not know what he's doing. But he needs to make sure that he has people engaged that understand what the rules and boundaries are and how to act in a respectable way. Similarly, I'll close on Paul Worley should not be in government service. I think Copley shouldn't either. These people could go work in the private sector. You always got these government people talking about how they're sacrificing to work in the public sector versus the private sector. Well, go work in the private sector and make more money, because we know you can, right? We know all these people can make more money in the private sector, so they should go do that. Why don't they go do that and impress us with how much money they make and how employable they are in the private sector?